Chosen one, pause for a moment. Do not scroll. Do not rush past this. You are not here by accident. You did not end on this message randomly. This is not timing by chance, and it is not coincidence by algorithm. This moment was aligned. Something in the unseen arranged this encounter because your spirit was ready to hear what heaven has already confirmed. Take a breath. Let your shoulders rest. Let the noise quiet. There is a reason your heart felt a pull to stay. Chosen one. God's timing is not late, and neither are you. What you are stepping into did not begin today. It began long before anyone else noticed. It began in silence. It began in seasons where nothing seemed to move, yet everything was being prepared. And this is what you must understand at the very beginning. God has already completed an internal elevation in you. Heaven confirmed it first. The natural world is only now beginning to respond. You are not waiting for permission. You are not waiting for validation. You are not waiting for approval. You are witnessing recognition. There has been a shift inside you that you may not have fully named yet, but others feel it. They sense it. They respond to it even when they do not understand it. That is not imagination. That is confirmation. Chosen one. When God finishes a work on the inside, the outside cannot remain unchanged forever. The world must respond. People must adjust. Atmospheres must shift. That is why things feel different lately. That is why conversations pause when you speak, or even when you remain silent. That is why eyes linger. That is why energy changes when you enter a room. It is not about attention. It is not about ego. It is not about being seen. It is about alignment. You are standing in the after effect of something God already completed. And if this is stirring something in your spirit, if you feel a quiet recognition rather than excitement, take a moment now and type Amen in the comments. Not for me, not for the channel, but as an act of agreement, as a spiritual acknowledgement, as a way of saying, yes, Lord, I receive what you have already done. Chosen one, this message is not here to push you. It is here to reassure you. You have spent too long questioning what God never doubted. There were seasons when it looked like nothing was happening. Seasons where doors stayed closed. Seasons where prayers felt unanswered. Seasons where you wondered if you misunderstood your calling, or if you even had one at all. But heaven was not inactive. Heaven was precise. While others were moving quickly, God was moving deeply in you. While others were being seen, you were being shaped. While others were being celebrated, you were being fortified. And now, the shift has reached the surface. Chosen one. The reason this feels unfamiliar is because you have never stood in this version of yourself before. You have never carried this level of peace, this level of clarity, this level of authority quietly resting inside you. This is not confidence learned from success. This is confidence born from survival and surrender. This is not something you practiced. This is something you became. You may still feel ordinary when you wake up in the morning. You may still feel like yourself, but something in you has settled. You no longer move with the urgency of someone trying to prove their worth. You no longer carry the heaviness of someone waiting to be chosen. Because somewhere along the way, often in the darkest, quietest moments, God settled your identity. That is why the world feels slightly out of sync with you now. That is why people react before they think. That is why some feel drawn and others feel exposed. It is not because you changed your personality. It is because heaven changed your positioning. Chosen one. This is not a motivational message. This is not self-help. This is not about becoming something new. This is about recognizing what has already been done. You were elevated internally before you were ever recognized externally. And that order matters, because elevation without grounding destroys people. But elevation built on healing creates authority. And authority does not announce itself. It is felt. If you've noticed that you speak less but carry more weight, if you've noticed that you no longer chase conversations, explanations, or validation, if you've noticed that your silence now says more than your words ever did, that is not distance. That is maturity. That is not arrogance. That is alignment. And alignment always reveals itself whether you intend it to or not. Chosen one. There is nothing you need to force in this season. Nothing you need to prove. Nothing you need to explain. What God finished in you cannot be undone by misunderstanding. What heaven confirmed does not require consensus. You are not ahead. You are not behind. You are on time. And as we continue through this message, nothing here will rush you. Nothing here will pressure you. Nothing here will demand performance. This is a space of recognition, of remembrance, of quiet confirmation. So settle in. Let the pace slow. Let your spirit stay open. Because what comes next is not about where you are going. It is about understanding why the world is responding to who you've already become. Chosen one, you are not being seen by accident. You are being revealed gently, deliberately, and in perfect time. Chosen one, now that your spirit is settled, let us go deeper, not forward, but inward. Because what you are experiencing now did not begin with visibility. It began in a place very few people were allowed to see. There was a season where God intentionally kept you hidden, not because you were unready, not because you were unworthy, but because what He was building in you required silence. You must understand this clearly. God hides what He is refining. In that hidden season, there were no witnesses to your obedience, no applause for your endurance, no recognition for your faithfulness. There were days you showed up when no one noticed, nights you prayed without language, moments when the only thing keeping you standing was the quiet assurance that God was still there, even when everything else felt empty. That season was not punishment, it was protection. If you had been exposed too early, you would have been misunderstood. If you had been elevated too soon, you would have been attacked from directions you were not yet fortified to handle. So God kept you covered. Chosen one. Heaven was not delaying you. Heaven was anchoring you. While others learned how to perform, you were learning how to remain. While others built platforms, you were building discernment. While others chased momentum, you were being taught how to stand still without losing faith. And that is why what you carry now has weight. The hidden season taught you how to survive without affirmation. It stripped you of the need to be seen in order to believe you mattered. It trained your spirit to listen for God's voice, even when the world was silent. There were moments when you questioned yourself, moments when you wondered if you had misunderstood God, moments when you felt forgotten, not by people, but by heaven. But even in those moments, God was working beneath the surface. Roots were going deeper than you realized. Strength was forming in places you didn't know needed reinforcement. Your identity was being settled so firmly that no future storm could uproot it. Chosen one. This is why you don't react the way you used to. This is why you no longer chase conversations that drain you. This is why you can sit in silence without panic. The hidden season taught you how to be alone without being lonely. It taught you how to wait without losing hope. It taught you how to trust God without needing immediate evidence. And now that internal work is complete. The reason people feel something around you now is because the pressure has lifted. The refinement has finished. What was once internal is beginning to radiate outward. But hear this carefully. You did not become visible because you tried harder. You became visible because healing finished its work. Chosen one. You asked God for peace, not attention. You asked for clarity, not applause. You asked for healing, not recognition, and God answered you fully. Healing always brings visibility. Clarity always draws attention. Peace always changes the atmosphere. That is why your presence feels different now. That is why people pause when you speak or when you don't. That is why some feel comforted near you and others feel unsettled. They are responding to the residue of your hidden season. They may not know your story. They don't know the nights you cried. They don't know the battles you fought silently. But they feel the result. They feel the steadiness in your spirit. They feel the maturity in your responses. They feel the authority in your calm. Chosen one. Hidden seasons do something powerful. They remove the need to explain yourself. You no longer feel the urge to over-justify your choices. You no longer shrink when misunderstood. You no longer fight to be perceived correctly, because the hidden season taught you this truth. What God knows about you is more important than what people assume. And now, God is allowing others to see what He has already confirmed. Not all at once, not loudly, not dramatically, but unmistakably. The hidden season also taught you compassion. You don't judge people the way you once did. You see wounds where you once saw attitude. You recognize fear where you once felt offense, because you remember who you were when you were still breaking quietly. That depth is why your presence feels safe to some and confronting to others. Those who are ready to heal feel drawn to you. Those who are avoiding themselves feel exposed. And that reaction is not your responsibility. Chosen one. Do not minimize what you survived just because you survived it quietly. There were seasons that should have hardened you, but they softened you instead. There were betrayals that could have made you bitter, but they refined you instead. There were delays that could have broken your faith, but they strengthened it instead. That is not accidental. That is evidence of divine workmanship. God was shaping your spirit to carry weight without collapsing, to hold peace without losing authority, to remain gentle without becoming weak. And now, the hidden season is ending not with an announcement, but with recognition. You are not stepping into visibility as someone desperate to be noticed. You are stepping into it as someone who no longer needs it, and that is why it is happening naturally. Chosen one. The world is responding to something that has already been settled in you. The hidden season is not behind you as a memory. It is within you as a foundation. And everything that unfolds next will rest upon what God built when no one was watching. Stay here. Let this truth settle. Because what comes next is not about the silence you endured. It is about why the delay lasted longer than you expected, and how it prepared you for what most people could not carry. Chosen one. The hidden season did not end when you expected it to. And that was not an oversight. There were moments when you thought, surely now. Moments when it felt like everything had aligned only for nothing to move. Moments when you wondered why the waiting stretched longer than what seemed reasonable. That prolonged delay was not resistance, it was precision. God was not testing your patience. He was completing your foundation. There is a kind of calling that cannot arrive early, a kind of assignment that requires depth before exposure, and a kind of authority that only comes after you've learned how to wait. Without resentment, chosen one, your delay was not because you were unqualified. It was because what you were called to carry demanded maturity. While others moved ahead quickly, you were being slowed intentionally, not to frustrate you, but to preserve you. If you had arrived earlier, you would have arrived with questions still unanswered inside you. If you had been released sooner, you would have been vulnerable to confusion, comparison, and pressure that could have distorted your purpose. So God waited until your spirit could stand without leaning on approval. That is why your calling feels late compared to others. But late in human time is not late in divine order. Chosen one, heaven does not rush what it intends to last. You are not being held back. You are being held together. The delay forced you to develop an inner life. It taught you how to sit with uncertainty without losing faith. It trained you to hear God's voice without needing constant reassurance. That kind of strength cannot be taught quickly. It can only be formed slowly. There were seasons when you felt invisible, not just to people, but to opportunity itself. Doors seemed to open for others, while yours remained shut. But what you didn't see then is what you are beginning to understand now. Those doors closed because you were not meant to walk through them yet. Some environments would have shaped you in ways that conflicted with who you were becoming. Some opportunities would have required compromise. You were not built to sustain. God was not denying you access. He was protecting your alignment. Chosen one, the delay trained you to stop chasing what wasn't assigned to you. It weaned you from the need to catch up. It removed the pressure to measure your life against timelines that were never meant for you. And that freedom is part of your authority now. You no longer feel panicked when things move slowly. You no longer feel threatened when others seem ahead. You no longer feel the urge to force momentum because delay taught you discernment. You learned the difference between movement and progress, between noise and direction, between urgency and obedience. And now, when things begin to move, they move with weight. Chosen one. There is something dangerous in the holy sense about someone who learned to wait without becoming bitter. You did not allow delay to poison your heart. You did not allow frustration to turn into resentment. You did not allow waiting to turn into unbelief. Instead, you allowed God to deepen you. That depth is why you now carry calm in situations that once unsettled you. That depth is why you don't need constant affirmation to remain steady. That depth is why your presence feels grounded, not rushed. People sense that you are not desperate for outcomes. They feel that you are anchored somewhere deeper than circumstances, and that anchors them too, or unsettles them. Chosen one, your late calling is not a disadvantage. It is a safeguard. You did not arrive early enough to be careless. You did not arrive young enough to be reckless. You did not arrive rushed enough to be unstable. You arrived seasoned. Your spirit has lived long enough in the unseen to know how to remain faithful without reward. You have endured silence without assuming abandonment. You have learned to trust God's timing even when your own understanding ran out. That is not delay. That is preparation at its highest level. And now, something subtle is happening. You may notice that opportunities no longer excite you the way they used to. You may notice that not everything pulls at you anymore. You may notice that your yes has become quieter and your no has become firmer. That is not indifference. That is clarity. The delay purified your desires. You are no longer impressed by speed. You are moved by substance. You are no longer chasing what looks good. You are drawn to what feels aligned. And that shift is what signals readiness, chosen one. Heaven does not release people who are still trying to prove something. Heaven releases people who are settled. And you are settled. The reason people are responding differently to you now is because your spirit is no longer racing ahead of your assignment. It has caught up with it. There is no internal conflict anymore. No tug of war between who you are and who you're becoming. That is why your presence feels integrated, whole, anchored, and that wholeness cannot be rushed into it, must be waded into. Chosen one, the delay did not steal time from you. It gave you something time cannot take away. It gave you discernment that cannot be shaken. It gave you identity that does not collapse under pressure. It gave you authority that does not need permission. And now, as movement begins slowly, naturally, unmistakably, it will not overwhelm you, because you are not stepping into something fragile. You are stepping into something fortified. Stay with this, because the delay did not only prepare you, it also revealed who would misunderstand you, who would doubt you, and who would not recognize what God was doing until much later. And that leads us into what comes next. Chosen one. There is a particular kind of pain that comes when the people who knew you first fail to recognize who you are becoming. It is quieter than betrayal, heavier than rejection, and more confusing than opposition. Because when doubt comes from strangers, you can dismiss it. But when it comes from family, from those who watched your beginnings, it reaches deeper places. There were moments when you felt unseen by the very people who should have understood you most. Moments when your growth was questioned, your decisions misunderstood, your silence misread as distance or pride. But hear this carefully. Familiarity often blocks revelation. They remembered the version of you that struggled. They remembered the season when you needed help. They remembered who you were before God finished His work in you. And because of that, they could not see you clearly now. This was not cruelty. It was limitation. Chosen one. God did not allow this to happen to break your heart. He allowed it to strengthen your identity. If your confidence had depended on their understanding, it would have collapsed under pressure. If your peace had required their approval, it would have been fragile. So God weaned you from expectation. There were times when you wanted to explain yourself, times when you wanted to be understood, times when you wanted someone to say, "I see it now." But God restrained you, not to silence you, but to protect you. Because explaining prematurely would have forced you to justify something God intended to reveal in His own time. Chosen one. Revelation always carries more authority than explanation, and God knew that if He allowed you to speak too much in that season, you would have diluted the weight of what He was building. So He let your life speak instead. This is why your growth happened quietly, why your transformation was subtle, why your authority did not arrive with announcement. It arrived with presence. Family doubt was not a sign that you were wrong. It was evidence that you were changing beyond the frame they had for you. And that is uncomfortable. It is uncomfortable when someone steps outside the role they were assigned in our minds. It is uncomfortable when healing rearranges dynamics. It is uncomfortable when growth no longer fits the story people told themselves about you. So some resisted it, some minimized it, some questioned it. But you did not fight back, because somewhere along the way, you learned that clarity does not need defense. Chosen one. There were conversations you walked away from unfinished, not because you had nothing to say, but because peace mattered more than being right. There were moments you chose silence over explanation, distance over debate, grace over confrontation. That was not weakness. That was wisdom, born from maturity. God was teaching you how to stand without needing agreement. And that lesson is priceless. Because the moment you stop needing validation, authority settles naturally. You are no longer trying to be seen by those who cannot see beyond the past. You are no longer shrinking to make others comfortable. You are no longer lowering your frequency to maintain familiarity. That version of you has ended. Chosen one. You may have noticed that some family members speak to you differently now, more cautiously, more thoughtfully, with an unspoken awareness they cannot explain. Others may still not understand, and that is okay, because understanding is not required for recognition to happen. God does not wait for consensus before He confirms someone. He confirms first. Then He allows recognition to follow slowly, selectively, and on His terms. Your role was never to convince them. Your role was to remain aligned, and alignment always outlasts misunderstanding. Chosen one. The pain of family doubt did something important in you. It detached your sense of self from external reflection. It anchored your identity internally. It taught you how to listen to God over familiarity. You learned to trust what God said about you, even when those closest to you could not affirm it. That is not easy, but it is necessary for those called to carry generational weight. Because if you are meant to break cycles, You cannot be fully shaped by the same environment that produced them. There had to be a separation, not of love, but of dependency. And now, you can love without losing yourself. You can honor without shrinking. You can forgive without forgetting who you are. That is balance. That is healing. That is authority. Chosen one. Family doubt did not delay your calling. It clarified it. It showed you who could walk with you into this next season and who could only see you from a distance. And that is not rejection. That is alignment. Stay with this truth, because what you carried through family misunderstanding did not just shape you. It positioned you to carry something larger than yourself, something that reaches beyond your own story and into the very bloodline you came from. Chosen one. What you have carried was never meant to end with you. There were weights placed on your shoulders that did not begin in your lifetime, patterns you did not choose, battles you did not start, pain that showed up before you had language for it. And for a long time, you may have wondered why your journey felt heavier than others, why your resistance was stronger, why the pressure followed you even when you tried to live quietly. This was not because something was wrong with you. It was because something was assigned to you. Chosen one. God does not place generational responsibility on fragile vessels. He entrusts it to those who can endure without becoming bitter, to those who can feel deeply without losing discernment, to those who can confront truth without becoming hardened. You were not chosen because you were perfect. You were chosen because you were willing to feel what others avoided, willing to face what others suppressed, willing to stand in the middle of inherited pain and say, "It stops here." That willingness did not come without cost. You carried emotional weight that did not match your age. You sensed patterns before you could explain them. You felt responsible for things you could not fix. And sometimes that burden made you feel isolated even in rooms full of people. But what felt like isolation was actually positioning. God was tuning your sensitivity. He was sharpening your awareness. He was preparing you to become a point of interruption. Chosen one. Every bloodline has a breaking point, a moment when cycles either continue or collapse. And that moment often shows up disguised as a person who feels different, more aware, more sensitive, more burdened. That person was you. You were born with a capacity to see beneath the surface, to sense what was unresolved, to feel what was unhealed. And for a long time, that felt like a weakness, but it was discernment forming. The reason the pressure intensified at certain stages of your life is because resistance always increases before a cycle breaks. Darkness does not release territory quietly. Patterns do not dissolve without confrontation. Generational dysfunction does not end without someone willing to stand in the tension. And you stood, even when you didn't know that's what you were doing. Chosen one. The hidden season was not only about you, The delay was not only about you. The misunderstanding was not only about you. You were being shaped as a bridge between what was and what will be. God was not just healing you, He was healing through you. That is why the process felt so internal, so thorough, so slow. Surface level change cannot sustain generational transformation. It requires depth. It requires surrender. It requires someone willing to let God touch places no one else sees. And you allowed that. You let God confront patterns you inherited. You let Him expose beliefs you didn't realize you were carrying. You let Him soften places that could have become hardened. That is not common. Most people repeat what they were given, not because they want to, but because they don't know how to stop. You stopped, and that is why your spirit carries weight now. People sense something settled in you because something ancient has been resolved. They may not understand it. They may not name it as generational, but they feel the shift. You are standing in a place your ancestors could not reach, not because you are better, but because you are willing to go further inward. Chosen one. This is why the process demanded solitude, why you could not lean too heavily on familiar voices, why God became your primary counselor. Human advice could not carry what you were confronting. Only divine wisdom could guide you through it. And now, what you carry is not just peace, it is clearance. Clearance for those who come after you. Clearance for conversations that will feel lighter. Clearance for choices that will no longer be burdened by fear. You may not see the full impact yet. That is normal. Generational shifts are often invisible at first. They show up in what no longer repeats, in reactions that soften, in patterns that quietly dissolve. Chosen one, you broke things without making noise. You chose healing where others chose denial. You chose truth where others chose comfort. You chose surrender where others chose control. And that choice is echoing forward. The reason your presence feels grounding to some is because you carry resolution. The reason others feel exposed is because what you resolved within yourself highlights what they have not faced. And that is not condemnation. That is contrast. You were not raised to shame your bloodline. You were raised to redeem it. And redemption rarely looks dramatic in the moment. It looks like restraint, like clarity, like choosing not to repeat what feels familiar but destructive. Chosen one, you are not carrying the burden anymore. You are carrying the outcome. The weight has shifted. The pressure has lifted. The assignment has moved from internal work to embodied presence. And now, the world responds not because you speak about it, but because your spirit carries the evidence. Stay with this, because stepping into generational purpose also changes how you move, how you respond, and how authority begins to show up in your life. And that is what we must look at next. Chosen one. Now, You are beginning to see it, not because someone announced it, not because you declared it, but because the atmosphere around you is responding. This is the stage where many people become confused, not about you, but about themselves. Because your elevation did not come with noise, it came with quiet authority. You did not rise by pushing. You rose by resolving. And that kind of elevation carries a different weight. There is a reason people are adjusting their tone around you. A reason conversations feel more careful. A reason some people hesitate before speaking, even when they don't know why. Your character has settled into something immovable, and immovable things affect their surroundings. Chosen one. Authority does not always look like leadership. Sometimes it looks like stillness. Sometimes it looks like restraint. Sometimes it looks like not reacting when reaction used to be your instinct. You have changed, but not in the way people expected. You no longer explain yourself to feel safe. You no longer overextend to feel accepted. You no longer engage in dynamics that drain your spirit. Not because you are cold, but because you are clear. Clarity creates boundaries without effort, and boundaries create respect without demand. That is why your presence now carries a firmness that did not exist before. You do not need to raise your voice. You do not need to assert dominance. You do not need to prove strength. Your peace does it for you. Chosen one. What you are carrying now is not confidence built on success. It is confidence built on survival, healing, and obedience. That is why it cannot be shaken easily. You have already walked through seasons that stripped you down to the core. You have already survived moments where you lost everything except God. You have already stood in places where fear tried to take your identity and failed. So now, when pressure comes, it does not move you the same way. People feel that. They sense that you are no longer easily provoked, no longer easily manipulated, no longer easily pulled into chaos. That kind of steadiness makes unstable things uncomfortable. Chosen one, do not misinterpret the reactions you receive now. When some people step back, it is not rejection, it is recalibration. They are adjusting to a version of you that no longer fits the role they had assigned. You are no longer the one who absorbs emotional weight for everyone else. You are no longer the one who overcompensates to keep peace. You are no longer the one who doubts themselves in silence. That version of you carried wounds. This version carries authority, and authority rearranges relationships, not through control, but through truth. You may notice that certain conversations no longer reach you the same way. That gossip feels foreign. That chaos feels loud. That drama feels unnecessary. This is not spiritual pride. This is spiritual maturity. Your nervous system has healed. your spirit has stabilized. Your identity has rooted itself. So your reactions have slowed, but your discernment has sharpened. Chosen one. This is what visible elevation actually looks like. It is not platforms. It is not applause. It is not being known by many. It is being unshaken. It is walking into rooms without shrinking. It is leaving environments that no longer align without explanation said aloud. It is choosing peace over performance again and again. People feel the difference because you are no longer fragmented. You are integrated. What you believe, what you carry, and how you live are no longer in conflict. That integrity creates gravity. Gravity pulls attention without effort. And that is why some people watch you more closely now. Not out of envy, but because something about your presence commands respect. Even those who do not believe in spiritual things can feel it, because authority is not religious. It is structural. It is built when someone has been internally rearranged. Chosen one. You are not intimidating. You are aligned. You are not distant. You are deliberate. You are not too much. You are whole. And wholeness has weight. That weight is why some people feel safe near you. They sense stability. They sense clarity. They sense someone who has walked through storms and did not become bitter. Others feel exposed because healed people become mirrors without saying a word. You reflect back what is unresolved. That is not your responsibility to manage. Your only responsibility is to remain true to what God has completed in you. You are no longer required to make others comfortable by diminishing yourself. If your calm unsettles someone, it is revealing something, not accusing something. If your boundaries disappoint someone, it is clarifying something. If your silence feels loud to someone, it is confronting something. Chosen one. Do not apologize for the authority that arrived through obedience. You paid for this version of yourself in private, with surrender, with tears, with endurance. This is not arrogance. This is fruit. And fruit does not need to announce itself. It simply ripens and becomes visible. You are in a season where what God built internally is now shaping how others experience you externally. That process cannot be reversed, and it does not need to be rushed, because the next stage is not about proving who you are. It is about sealing what God has done and learning how to walk forward without carrying the weight you've already laid down. Stay here, because what comes next is not instruction. It is covering. Chosen one. Now slow everything down. There is nothing you need to do in this moment. Nothing to fix. Nothing to prove. Nothing to figure out. Just remain here. Let what has been spoken settle not in your mind, but in your spirit. Because this message was not sent to inform you. It was sent to seal what God has already done. Take a deep breath in and release it slowly. You are safe here. Heaven is not rushing you. God is not pressuring you. This is not a moment of striving. This is a moment of agreement. Guided prayer. Father God, we come before you now in quiet reverence, not asking for what has already been finished, but thanking you for the work you completed in hidden places. Thank you for the internal elevation you accomplished when no one was watching. Thank you for the healing you brought without noise. Thank you for the clarity that settled gently instead of arriving with force. Lord, you saw every silent season. You counted every tear. You recorded every moment of obedience that went unnoticed by others. And you did not waste a single one. Right now, we acknowledge that what you have confirmed in heaven is now unfolding on earth. We release the need to rush it. We release the need to explain it. We release the need to defend it. We choose trust over control, peace over pressure, alignment over approval. Father, settle the heart of this chosen one even deeper. Quiet every lingering doubt. Soften every place that still feels tender. Strengthen every boundary you have put in place. Let them rest in who they are becoming without fear, without apology, without hesitation. Declarations spoken slowly, gently. Chosen one. If it feels right, you may whisper these or simply receive them quietly. I declare that I am aligned with God's timing. I am not early. I am not late. I am on time. I declare that what God completed in me cannot be undone. Not by misunderstanding, not by delay, not by opposition. I declare that my presence carries peace, not pressure, authority, not anxiety, clarity, not confusion. I declare that I no longer carry what God already healed. I walk forward, unburdened, rooted, steady. I declare that my life testifies, even when my mouth is silent. Heaven has confirmed me. The earth is responding. I declare that I am protected in this season of visibility, covered, guided, held, and I declare that the work God began, He will complete gently, faithfully, and in perfect order. Amen. Chosen one, breathe again. Notice what feels lighter. Notice what feels settled. Notice what no longer feels urgent. That is peace taking its rightful place. You are not leaving this moment weaker. You are leaving it steadied. You do not need to replay every word. You do not need to analyze what you felt. Trust that what needed to land has landed if, in your spirit, you feel led gently to stay connected. You may share this message with someone who is carrying weight in silence, not to convince them, not to instruct them, but to offer them rest. And if your heart feels full, let that be enough. Chosen one, you are not walking forward alone. You are not stepping into uncertainty. You are not entering chaos. You are moving with God slowly, deliberately, and securely. Let tonight be peaceful. Let your thoughts be quiet. Let your rest be deep. You are held. You are guided. You are covered. And what God has marked cannot be erased. Go now in peace, in confidence, in quiet strength. You are chosen. You are aligned. And heaven watches over every step you take.